Story no one was late, around 2 a.m., and I was driving back from a friend's house. The road I took was one of those old backcountry routes, no streetlights, no traffic, just me and my car slicing through the pitch-black night. My GPS had lost signal miles ago, but I figured I could navigate the familiar path home, or so I thought. About half an hour into the drive, something felt wrong. The air inside the car grew heavy, and the headlights seemed to dim slightly, as if the darkness outside was swallowing the light. That's when I saw it. A figure standing on the side of the road, barely visible in the fog. It was a woman in what looked like a torn white dress. Her head was bowed, and her long hair obscured her face. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just someone stranded. Maybe her car broke down. I slowed down slightly, debating whether to stop, but before I could make a decision, she turned her head toward me. Her face. It was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were pitch black, like voids staring straight into my soul. I slammed on the gas and sped past her. I tried to rationalize what I'd seen. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe it was a trick of the light. But a few minutes later, my heart dropped. In the distance, through the fog, I saw her again. Standing in the middle of the road this time. The same torn dress, the same black eyes. It didn't make sense. There was no way she could have gotten ahead of me. But there she was, blocking my path. I skidded to a halt, the car just feet away from her. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, too terrified to move. She slowly lifted one arm and pointed toward the woods. I don't know why, but I felt an overwhelming urge to look, and that's when I saw it. Dozens of shadowy figures emerging from the trees, their movements slow and unnatural. They were coming toward me. I didn't think twice. I threw the car into reverse and floored it. My tires squealed as I backed away, the figures getting closer. I could feel my chest tightening, my breath coming in short gasps. When I finally turned the car around, I didn't look back. I just drove as fast as I could, my eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. When I hit the main highway, the oppressive darkness seemed to lift, but my heart didn't stop pounding. I didn't stop driving until I reached my driveway, and even then I couldn't bring myself to leave the car for a few minutes. I sat there, shaking, replaying the events in my mind. Had I imagined it? Was it exhaustion? Or was it something else? Something I can't explain? I've avoided that road. I've heard others talk about strange occurrences there. Disappearing hitchhikers, shadowy figures, even cars that break down inexplicably. Whatever I saw that night, I don't want to see it again. So the next time you find yourself driving alone at night, remember this. The road might be empty, but you're never truly alone. Stay safe out there and drive carefully. Story No. 2. It was supposed to be a quick drive home. Just an hour on the highway, nothing unusual. I had taken this route 100 times before, but something about this night felt different. The sky was pitch black, with no stars or moonlight to guide me, just the faint beams of my headlights cutting through the darkness. About 20 minutes in, the road started to change. The smooth pavement gave way to cracked asphalt, and the surrounding trees seemed to grow denser, their twisted branches arching over the road like skeletal hands. My GPS suddenly lost signal, and my phone displayed a spinning wheel of nothing. I kept driving, telling myself I'd find my way back soon enough. That's when I saw it. A car parked on the side of the road with its hazard lights blinking. I slowed down, squinting to see if anyone needed help. As I approached, I noticed the driver's door was open, but no one was inside. Something about the scene felt wrong. The car looked old, abandoned for years, but the hazard lights were bright, almost too bright. I decided not to stop. Just as I passed the car, a chill ran down my spine. I glanced in my rearview mirror and froze. A figure was standing by the abandoned car. It was tall and shadowy, with no discernible features, but it was staring at me. At least, I think it was. I couldn't see any eyes, just the outline of a head tilted ever so slightly in my direction. I pressed the gas, trying to shake the image from my mind, but the road seemed to stretch endlessly ahead. 5 minutes passed, then 10, and still no sign of the highway. That's when I saw another car, or maybe it was the same one, parked on the shoulder. This time, I didn't slow down. but as I passed, my headlights illuminated something, or someone, in the back seat. A pale face with wide, empty eyes staring out at me. My heart pounded as I sped away, refusing to look in the mirror again. The air in the car grew colder and the radio, which had been silent, suddenly crackled to life. Static filled the speakers, followed by faint whispers I couldn't understand. Then, a single word cut through the noise. Stop. I didn't. I kept driving, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly they ached. The trees on either side of the road seemed to close in, their branches scraping against the car like fingernails. I felt like I was being watched, like something was right behind me. Funnily, I saw it, the highway. Relief washed over me as I merged onto the familiar road, leaving the dark stretch behind. But just as I began to relax, I glanced at the passenger seat. Story No. 3. The night was unusually quiet as I left the gas station on the outskirts of town. It was late, nearly midnight, and the winding back roads leading home were the fastest route. The clerk had given me a strange look when I mentioned my destination, mumbling something I couldn't make out. I shrugged it off and pulled onto the dark, deserted road. The first 20 minutes were uneventful, just the hum of my car and the occasional flicker of my headlights reflecting off roadside signs. But as I rounded a sharp bend, I noticed something strange. A figure stood on the shoulder, barely visible in the dim glow of my headlights. It was a woman, her long hair disheveled and her dress tattered. She wasn't hitchhiking or signaling for help. She was just standing there, perfectly still, staring straight ahead. I slowed down instinctively, but as I passed her, she turned her head to follow my car. Her eyes locked onto mine, cold and empty. A chill ran down my spine and I pressed the gas pedal harder. The road stretched endlessly before me, but the uneasy feeling lingered. I couldn't shake the image of her face, pale and expressionless. Minutes later, I spotted something ahead. My stomach dropped. It was her again, standing on the side of the road. This time, her head was tilted slightly, her gaze unblinking. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I drove past, refusing to look back. Just keep going, I muttered to myself. It's not real. But as I continued, the air inside the car grew colder and an unsettling sound filled the cabin. A faint, rhythmic tapping. It sounded like it was coming from the roof. I glanced up, but of course I couldn't see anything. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. My heart pounded as I reached for my phone, only to realize it was completely dead. No signal, no light, nothing. Panic set in as the tapping turned into a scratching noise, like nails dragging across metal. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop in the middle of the empty road. The sound stopped instantly, leaving only silence. I sat there gripping the wheel, too afraid to move. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw her. She was sitting in the back seat, her face inches from mine, her hollow eyes staring into me. I screamed and threw the door open, stumbling out into the cold night. The road was empty. No cars, no houses, no signs of life. I turned back to my car, but she was gone. The back seat was empty, the doors all locked. Shaking, I got back in and sped off, not daring to stop until I reached home. For weeks, I avoided driving at night, and I haven't taken that road since. But sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I hear that faint tapping sound. On my roof, on my windows, and I can't help but wonder if she ever really left.